He's the mind behind key insights on race, class, and cohesion, championing Singapore's mosaic, not melting pot. Join me and Dr. Mathew Matthews for a hearty chat, tuna curry, and Nasi Dagang.
Wow, alright.
I'm Chris, historian and chef, and this is Hotplate SG60. Matthew, welcome to Hotplate SG60.
Well, glad to be here.
Really excited to have you here. You know what? Let me start off this conversation by pulling up my guitar. You know, I've been puzzled by this word harmony.
Mm-hmm.
As a musician, harmony is very important to me. The most beautiful notes are when you play it together as a chord, right? So the typical chord would be notes that are a third apart.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, C major would be C, E, and G.
Mm-hmm.
Individually, nothing much. But when you play them together, vibrancy, color, a new identity, something above and beyond the individual notes. I've tried to apply this concept to racial harmony, and I struggle with that. I really struggle with that thought, because how is it that the Chinese, Indian, Malays, others play together well and create something that is amazing? I mean, nobody wants to listen to individual notes. I mean, you say, okay, just play a scene. I just want to listen to chords when things are harmonized. Maybe could you comment on that?
No, that's a great thought when it comes to how harmony is developed in music, and you get the total is better than the sum of the individual parts.
Yes,
and I think that's a great idea. And I think that's the beauty of being in Singapore, when you've got people of very different backgrounds, and everybody brings to the table something which comes from a long tradition, a rich tradition, where there's been lots of evolution, lots of development. Every culture in Singapore is rich, but when you have that play together in that sense, you certainly see the richness come out in a level that you normally don't get. I think that's clearly in the case of where we see most of that harmonizing and or rather the mixing together. That, of course, there's to be in food culture, which where there's a lot more of that.
I think I definitely see it in food. That's a given. We all live our individual lives, unless you are in an interracial marriage. I like myself. My wife's Indian. She's the producer. Then, there is that sort of thing. But families not in interracial, monoracial families. How does that happen?
In fact, in the book that I edited, it's right there. One of the things that we observe, and many people think about Singapore as being this melting pot. We're not a melting pot. The US is a melting pot. Different cultures kind of try to blend together, and that affects how people live their life. Singapore is a lot more of a mosaic. You can still see the individual parts very clearly. So if we all keep our languages to some extent, kind of distinct. Mandarin is pretty much Mandarin. You don't have a lot of borrowing from other languages per se. I mean, at least now you don't get a lot from. And there are definitely some borrowings that every language has had, but limited. Cultural forms, dance forms, for instance, everybody goes back to what it was. It's how it's probably done in country of origin, for instance, and how it's evolved there. So I think we try to keep many of those things. So we try to keep our individual cultures intact.
But then, if that's the case, then somebody else's culture is a novelty for somebody in another race. So I'm Chinese. I've seen Indian dance fleetingly on TV, doesn't really interest me. Yeah, okay, I know that's Indian dance, but where's the harmony? Where's the interaction? Where's the building blocks of something greater than the individual?
Yeah. But I would say that some people expect the only way to build that harmony is everybody kind of have to blend in each other. You got to create this special dance which mixes Chinese, Malay, Indian, Eurasian cultures together. I don't think that's necessary. But if you can play together, if you can dance together,
it's not even that level. I'm saying just the interest. I'm not going to adopt your culture. A typical Singaporean say, hey, I really want to learn about Indian culture, or a Malay saying, I really want to know about the Eurasians. I may be wrong. I'm not a researcher. I just go on gut feel. I just feel that this is really lacking, in Singapore.
In fact, when we first began our studies, looking at this particular question, right, we had a simple question, part of a bigger battery of questions, but I like to get to know other cultures and other traditions. And we asked in various ways that same idea. And it was about like 50% or half of Singaporeans would be open and interested. So it's quite a lot of people. Now, over the years, we've seen it shift. It's a little bit more 60-something. Our younger people are a little bit more open, but still tepid kind of responses, right? Those would say strongly yes. That's what I want to get to know. It's actually a very small portion compared for many people. It's, I don't mind. In fact, I think a lot of people do, if you give them that opportunity to learn something about somebody else, it's kind of nice, but they won't go out of their way to begin to develop that kind of, interest.
I learned something very interesting. Recently, I went to Ubin and there was this amazing young guide, and he's so passionate because his family is from Ubin, Pulau Ubin. And part of that tour, it really illuminated for me what the Kampong spirit was. We always hear the word being bandied around, Kampong spirit, gotong, royong, things like that, right? But what happened in Ubin was that the sense of interdependence between the different races was crucial to survival. So, for example, when building a new house there, different races had different specialties. I can't remember exactly. I'm just going to use a made-up example. Say the Chinese were very good at making doors. I've forgotten.
That's it. Yeah.
Now, and the Malays were good at building roofs. And this, you needed the expertise. It wasn't an option. If you didn't get along, if there was no realization of interdependence, man, you couldn't survive.
And early Singapore had a lot of economic niches and dependency because some people would do well as dobies and do laundry. Some people would be merchants. Some would do different kinds of labor work. So if somebody would be money lending, there would be different groups which would be able to contribute to the economy, and everybody kind of needed each other because you can't run life without having these special niches and occupations where you can benefit from. And some people are really good at some things and not good at others. Now that's an interesting level, but of course then you always have this idea about a hierarchy of different specializations, and some specializations are more valued, or people kind of give it more, see it as being more difficult. And then of course then it becomes that comparison too. I think we have moved in a society that it's not so much about one group being very good at building one part, but every group kind of has similar kind of competencies. But somehow or other we realize that being together has its value because there's some things that we can tap on.
Well, I'm curious, using the Ubin example, the glue that really forced everybody together was truly interdependence. It goes with any of the kampongs from those days. People were truly interdependent on each other to survive. What's forcing Singaporeans now to harmonize, to come together? Or is it necessary? If it's not necessary, it's just that Singapore has created a broad enough space for everybody to exist. I would say at best that's cultural or racial tolerance. I wouldn't say harmony.
What I think people realize is that there is a glue which really is our sense of a shared future together. And being in Singapore, we do feel that, hey, we do care about a common prosperity, a state where you've got security, harmony, the values which we believe are very important. In fact, when we asked in many of our surveys, what do you want somebody who is a newcomer to Singapore to embrace? Number one, rule of law. Number two, tolerance, multiculturalism. So very, very strong values that Singaporeans have. Now, whether how we live it out might be a different story, but ideologically, we have a strong interest and we feel that value when people come together, keep a peaceful, cohesive society. That's something that we don't see around the world. And so many Singaporeans treasure what we have in Singapore.
And a lot of people move here because they couldn't find those values in their own country.
Exactly.
And they came to Singapore, right? Another thing that I find is language. How important is a common language to social cohesion? And most people say we got a common language. It's English, right? Is that it? Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm sure. Well, at one level, certainly English has helped us as a people to break some of the barriers of communication. Now, every society needs some kind of lingua franca. Years ago, Singapore, I mean, Bahasa Malay was used widely, but certainly, I mean, English has taken that position. So today, we can do business. We can talk to somebody around us, and most Singaporeans have a decent capacity in English. But then, of course, then we bring this idea about Singlish being this very special language that has come out autochtonously, like indigenously from Singapore, or rather because of the mixtures of different cultures and backgrounds. But something where insiders here feel a certain sense of connection.
But do you think Singlish is a patois that came about from the Kampong days, where people were really forced to come together? Now, if you look at the younger generation, the surprising thing to me is like a lot of kids speak with this amazing American accent, as if they grew up in America, but they never left Singapore. These kids are in the formative years, all right? Where's the identity? Is that Singaporeanness still there? I grew up in a generation where we could at least converse in 3 to 4 languages easily. When you can speak somebody else's language, you have actually integrated, because language is a very primal thing. The way you think would then sort of be integrated with the language or the people that you have learned the language with.
We don't have that same brand of multiculturalism we had in those days when it comes to language. There's a lot more of mixing of language that was common. I mean, ability to speak to different people in that language certainly creates something.
Bond,
yes,
right?
it's a powerful thing when people know that, hey, you know, I'm not Chinese, but then I'm using a smattering of Mandarin, and I mean that creates some kind of connection. One can argue that functionally, that has been replaced by the fact that many of us speak English. And so then it may not be so important to see that connection. And if you speak Singlish, it seems to be like a patois which has a particular kind of resonance with people. People feel that, hey, you have imbibed the Singaporeanness. So when you see an expatriate come to Singapore and after a while, we start speaking in a little bit more of Singlish tone or style, people feel a certain kind of attraction to how he's speaking and saying he's one of us.
Is Singapore developing into a class-based society? Not differentiation, not so much between race, religion, but classes, right? So, like for yourself and myself, I think we have pretty similar backgrounds. We're educated, we went to university, and we would speak English properly to each other, but in moments of jest or we would break into Singlish, but we wouldn't be speaking Singlish all the time, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, what is it? I'm trying to identify the glue that can glue people in Singapore together. You've identified one very strong one, which is common values.
Yeah.
You know, you say Singlish. I'm trying to poke holes in that. You know?
So, I mean, obviously, Singlish will evolve like any other language, and it's very unlikely that we'll codify Singlish the way that English is codified. But yet, the fact that we are in a setting where you have various languages spoken, and it will continue because, you know, I mean, we have people from different parts of the world coming to Singapore, being here, who would probably be more proficient in one particular language and will speak it a lot. But I think the broader language ecosystem where our dominant languages continue to have quite a bit of say will determine how our languages are ultimately spoken. So I see Singlish will have a long life in Singapore.
What do you think about Singapore developing into a class-based society? I mean, Singapore is affluent. One of its aims is to attract high net worths into Singapore. And we already see enclaves developing. How will we integrate NRI enclave? They bring their own culture. They have that own culture within that enclave. Some try to reach out, but majority of them still stay within that bubble, as humble opinion.
Yeah. Social class will continue to become an important determiner of division. We just had a paper we just put out on friendships, and one fact is that over the years, our friendship circles have gone down. I mean, this seems to be the case, especially with the development of social media and all that. The second thing was very, very clear was that when we had these items, which was we keep measuring those items about, I find it more difficult to mix with people of a different social economic background. Increasingly, people are saying it's more difficult. And I was particularly interested in the fact that, I just observed it as we looked at the cuts among rich young individuals, higher socioeconomic class young. They mentioned that they have difficulty with that, which then, of course, makes it a little disconcerting because they may not have the same kind of ability to cut across different socioeconomic profiles, which are a little different. I mean, the earlier days, even if you were richer, you would have a lot of relatives and family members, friends who would be of a different socioeconomic background. Today, that's a little different because, we've got very substantial numbers who are much better off. And you can be in your little bubble. And that is likely to be the case. So, one, we notice that there is that lower competence that people have in being able to work with people of different backgrounds. And that will be a concern. I mean, we have the ingredients which would form a more class-based society. I mean, and I think this is something that a lot of people are concerned about, government's concerned about. Certainly, many of us who are thinking about Singapore's future care about that. And I think that's been where initiatives, programming, something needs to be done.
I think that's something one shouldn't fall into because, in the UK, for example, I studied in the UK. Class is a very big thing. Which school you went to, your accent. It's like, oh gosh, you could be totally incompetent and you speak with the right accent and you went to the right school, you'd succeed.
Yeah. And one worry is whether particular groups in Singapore would one have nothing to do with you because you didn't speak with that same accent or what would come out as being posh. I mean, again, this is not, I guess it's not mainstream yet, but certainly you see pockets forming.
Do you think Singapore is going to address this, or is this some problem that's endemic in any society? So for example, in the UK, if you go to Oxford, Cambridge, London School, Imperial, that's it, you've minted it,
Yeah, social mobility is always a concern. I think in Singapore, so far, it's still possible for individuals who come from a variety of backgrounds to be able to get into, for instance, within these top schools that we have here, you definitely have a portion of people who are not children of the elite, the children who have parents who have a lot of money. So you do have people from more humble backgrounds get into those places, and the system, the culture does help them to rise. You can't stop individuals passing on their privileges. But what it is, we can ensure that those same individuals are able to communicate, get along with people from very, very different backgrounds. They are able to, play, work together. And I think that common space that needs to be created is essential. We'll be in big trouble if our playgrounds, which to some extent are currently the case, are segregated, right? If you're rich, you play in your condo playground. If you're poor, you might play in a smaller playground. So that is a change. I hope that even when it comes to schools have been a very important part of, it sometimes can be seen as reproducing some of this inequality. Hopefully there'll be many more programs where you've got kids in athletics or others, not just playing with their own school, but people around the area, then you might be able to develop some of these connections.
I wonder if this is a moral responsibility of one's parents to educate one's children properly. I come from a pretty privileged background, but my mom and dad, they put me in a good school, but they put me in a school that had all sorts of kids in it. And they always told me, hey, you got to live in this world, not only with your privileged people, but everyone. And that always stuck in my head. And that was the job of my parents. They did this job. What do you think? Is it, should parents be more socially responsible for this? I know it's tough because in Singapore, when you're growing up, people are saying, hey, you got to get ahead of them, climb harder so you're not like them, right? So that that competitiveness, once you want to distinguish yourself, you want to leave the failures behind.
I don't think it's just moral responsibility. It's probably good for your children. I mean, my wife and I, we made sure our kids go to what would be considered as very, very neighborhood, at least primary school. And I think that helped them tremendously because there was a competence about being able to connect with people from very, very different backgrounds, because probably without that school environment, they would not have been able to do it as well. And so you think about it, it's not just about moral responsibility because you want to have a more cohesive society. It's the truth that your kids would need to be able to survive in a world which is a whole different, and they cannot be in bubble. Gaming computer here. Yeah, my wife is Chinese, and these are my 3 boys right there. So we have a family full of boys. My wife is left out most of the time. She's a men's world here.
So, wow, they are all strapping lads, sportsmen. Tell us a bit about them. What do they do?
Of course, they all love soccer. That's been their big passion. They try to play that very, very often. I think my youngest son plays it 3 times a day.
How's that possible? So they all have a passion for soccer only.
Yes, they do.
So what do you think they have benefited from growing up in an interracial family?
Besides, of course, being able to taste food from different backgrounds, which is something that some people may not be able to have, and being a lot more acquainted beyond just roti prata or something, or really having a good sense of grandparents of different ethnic backgrounds and understanding where they come from, and in different worlds, obviously, in different kinds of tradition, beliefs.
Do they speak their mother tongues?
In fact, it's interesting that for my kids, none of them speak any mother tongue. They all took Malay in school, which is what I took in school. And so they speak in a language which was not, I mean, both as a grandparents obviously speak English, so that has helped them to communicate with grandparents. It makes a lot of sense doing Mandarin because of the economic needs, and everybody kind of expects some of that. But, you know, we kind of, I mean, of course, in Singapore, mother tongue is sometimes father's tongue, as you can tell, right? It follows quite a bit of our tradition. We are in Southeast Asia, in Indonesia, Malaysia.
The majority speak.
It is a form of Malay. So I'm very happy that they've been able to be with the people.
Yeah, it's important, right? Okay. And this is
me and my wife, and this was, I think, our 20th wedding anniversary. Somebody baked us a cake, and it's kind of a green cake.
How did you meet your wife?
We were in church together, and so we knew each other when we were quite young. So we were just friends, and for many years.
And this is you lecturing?
This is actually about, they wanted to discuss racial discrimination. And so this was a young crowd. They were trying to think about new policies about, or what to do about the racial discrimination. So I was giving them a little bit of a
That's interesting. You know, we touch on that. I was reading through your report. It seems that the younger generation think that there is racial discrimination.
Yeah.
I must say this. So I'm Chinese. I'm in the majority. Rose is Indian, Eurasian mix. And she does feel racially discriminated against. I have never observed anyone in Singapore in the minority being racially discriminated against. But maybe I'm seeing it through the eyes of the majority. Maybe I'm so obtuse to it. It's like, because I've never been discriminated against. What do you think about that?
Over the years of doing surveys, and it's very, very clear, if you ask the minority, the experience will be quite different in terms of what they feel in terms of discrimination, whether it's at workplace. You definitely see, say about 25%, a quarter, who would say that they're quite sure that they've been racially discriminated at work, whether it's getting a job, a promotion. And it's quite, I mean, it's something that people observe, right? I mean, people being asked in an interview, for instance, that how is it like for you if you are in this company where everybody will speak Mandarin and you can't speak Mandarin? Are you all right with that? And what do you say with the answer? If you either, whatever you say might either make them feel that this guy's not a team player, he's not going to try to blend in, or there are various pockets and various kinds of companies where integration has not been top of mind for them. And I think
And
that's
what
a
did
project.
these kids feel?
What was kind of interesting was that people had different views, for instance. I mean, they're still young, so probably not very familiar with the world of work. But then, some felt very strongly that, well, if you cannot, if people around you are all speaking another language, the majority language, ethnic language, and you are a minority there, well, you shouldn't be so upset because they're not excluding you from work issues. So if it's not a work issue, if you're socially excluded, it's actually all right. Now, the truth of the matter, many of us know when we are at work, it's if you don't have that social part, many of the inside information is lost there.
Matthew, I hope you're hungry because I really had an amazing conversation with you. I've been enlightened on many things. So we need to go to the kitchen to cook our meal now.
Excellent.
Thank you. I'm going to be making a Malay dish, Nasi Dagang. Now, your second language is Malay.
Yes.
What does the word dagang mean to you?
It's like merchant.
Absolutely. This is merchant rice, and this was the rice eaten by Kelantanese merchants and still eaten today. It's a very interesting recipe. The nasi dagang, the actual rice is in there. I'll show it to you in a bit. But the thing that usually accompanies that nasi dagang is gulai ikan, a wet kind of curry. It's not a thick curry. Okay, so let's start. What we have here is the rempah. The spice base consists of red chili, dried chili, galangal, kunyit, turmeric, and halia or jahe, and some shallots and garlic. So this is it. I'm going to add in some oil. This process is called the Tumis.
Okay.
It's a process that's very unique to Southeast Asia, where you actually fry down your spices.
Yeah, nowadays we try to be healthy and everybody's trying to cut down all the oil and...
Actually, when you tumis, you need the oil. Otherwise, you don't get authentic flavors. But what you do, if you have excess oil, you scoop it up. You just remove it. But if you are a traditionalist and somebody removes the oil, you'll get smacked.
Do you do a lot of Southeast Asian cooking?
Yeah, I love to cook Malay food, Indonesian food. That's one of my specialties.
And different parts of Indonesia, because Indonesian food is so diverse.
Absolutely. So my favorite is Bali, because I go to Bali quite often.
Right.
Okay. So your spice base is now done, and now we need to add in some asam jawa, which is
with
tamarind, some sugar for sweetness.
Yeah, that's one thing about Southeast Asian cooking, or at least Indonesian cooking.
Yeah, you're right. It's always a balance of flavors, right? And what a good chef does is he tries to balance this perfectly. So this is asam glugo.
Very nice. Fragrances are coming out.
Yeah, you can see the oil has split.
One thing about Southeast Asian cooking is a little different from Indian cooking is the introduction of quite a few of these different tamarinds and the sweetness, which you don't find so much in South Asian cooking. Yeah.
So this is where it becomes a gulai. The gulai typically must be watery, right? Now, I'm going to add in some fish. Ikan tongkol, which is a type of tuna. So, while this is simmering, I'm going to heat up the rice.
Look at that. The nasi dagang, is that steamed?
Yeah, it's steamed. It's glutinous rice. And I'm just going to steam it so that we have something hot. This needs a bit more tamarind.
It looks like quite a bit. I'd have thrown in a lot more sugar. But you think the balance is just nice?
Put in a bit first.
Okay, then you want
because you can add. You put in too much.
Yeah, that is true. That's always.
That's what I'm doing now. Now I'm just balancing the flavors. Actually, needs a bit more salt. Salt's interesting. There is a perfect spot where it just brings out umami. It's that sweet spot, and that's really tough to do in curries. Now we need to add in
the pekat, or
this is the
that's
light one. This is a chaya.
That is
freshly squeezed. That's the best kind. You see, again, it's visual. It's so beautiful now, right?
It is.
Yeah, I love this. Now, the final bit, I'm going to add in the young cut.
Yeah.
Just a bit.
Just some that sweetness of the thick
Yeah.
santan comes out.
Absolutely. Okay, we are done.
Very, very nice.
Okay, so that's your gulai, and then we're going to eat it with nasi
Nasi
dagang.
dagang.
Okay, nasi dagang is done. Chef hands.
Wow, alright.
Matthew, hope you're hungry.
Yes,
So
man.
we have the fish, the gulai ikan, and the rice. And this is a nasi dagang. It's glutinous rice mixed with some red rice, and then it's steamed instead of boiled. And then you mix in coconut milk with salt and fennel seeds and pandan leaf.
Oh, thank you.
Bon appetit.
Nasi dagang has its texture. You always bite into the firmer portions of the rice.
Yeah. The red rice is unpolished. So however long you boil unpolished rice, it's still got a chewiness. Yeah.
And it adds that nice texture.
It's different. So growing up in Penang, I had access to a lot of very authentic Malay food. And cooking a dish like this just reminds me of the old days, nostalgia. In Singapore, I find, except for certain shops, the Malay food is very ubiquitous. Malay food is very, very varied. Depends on which region you come from. Kelantan has got its own flavors. Perak, its own flavors. Johor, its own flavors. KL, its own flavors. It's really, really diverse. And people think that, oh gosh, Malay food is...
You know, when people who are not, I guess, who don't grow up in a particular cuisine, when they try to access another cuisine, they always will go for those standard staples. So, roti prata. If it's Malay food, it has to be, if it's asam.
Nasi lemak.
Nasi lemak, yeah. I mean, the variety is like butter chicken for Indian food. And people have a very fixed set of food that they will take. That's what is familiar. I think we all have difficulty of getting into what would be unfamiliar.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the difficulty is, right?
But if you travel and you're adventurous, you realize, hey, that's not what I thought it would be.
Yeah, it is. And I think we miss out on all what is good and what can really be very pleasurable taste sensations.
So I cook a version of rendang from Perak. Most people say, hey, that's not rendang. This rendang comes from Perak. It's called rendang tok. And we cook it down to almost like a jerky. So it's actually black and very, very dry and got a very strong, smoky aroma. And then we finish it off with daun kunyit, turmeric leaves, which gives it that beautiful freshness that contrasts with the umami. And people love it. They say, I've never tasted a flavor like that before. Yeah, as far as I know, in Singapore, I'm the only person who does it.
Who does that? Yeah. It's nice people like it. And I think that's always the beauty, right? It is these dishes which are kind of like undiscovered, nobody's discovered them yet. But so we actually tasted really a loss of richness.
I'll just offer you a bit more rice.
Oh, thank you very much.
Curry, rice, and real talk on race, respect, and what it means to belong. In a world divided, Singapore reminds us harmony is a dish worth protecting. Catch more stories on Hotplate SG60.